right, we're back. Welcome into Rockhound Detroit Lions. It is, well, used to be off the cuff on Wednesday nights, but it's just off the cuff with member guests tonight. So we're kicking off a new series, and I've got Riley O'Brien with me here tonight. So we're going to be interviewing a guest, Tim Brandon, from California. He's a coach, high school football coach. Sounds like one of California's biggest Lions fans. But we're going to be talking about football, life, coaching, Detroit Lions, getting into it all. Riley, I know you're excited about this one. I'm glad to kick off a new series, but how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, much better than I felt this morning. And yeah, I'm excited to be here, man. Tim's a good friend, a fellow Lions fan. You said it best. Might be California's biggest Lions fan, so ready to party tonight.
All right. Well, let's get him in here in just a few seconds. Appreciate everyone joining us tonight, being patient, and let's get it rolling. So let's meet one of Detroit Lions' epic fans from California. Here we go. Mr. Tim Brandon, what's happening?
Not much, man. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for actually joining us tonight. It's an honor to have you here. You know, tonight is member guest. It's about you. It's member really doesn't mean anything other than we know that you watch the show, you're subscribed to the channel, and you've got a story to tell. I mean, you're a coach, you're out in California, you're a diehard Lions fan, and I just don't think that there's anything better than all of that just kind of mixed together. So let's highlight some Lions fans between now and the season when it kicks off, so that everybody can learn just a little bit about who we are and a little bit more about each one of us. So I appreciate you for showing up tonight. And Riley, I appreciate you for bridging the connection here. Why don't you give us a little bit of a glimpse on Mr. Brandon, and let's get it kicked off.
Yeah, so Tim is somebody that I think first started following on Twitter, I don't know, man, 5-6 years ago, maybe longer, honestly. And just somebody who I've always, seen his tweets. And even if I hadn't always interacted with him, I thought like, I agree with like almost everything I see that he says, which tends to happen when, you meet like-minded people. And so there was one day a few months back, well, this actually was probably at the start of the season, and I saw somebody had tweeted out, "Hey, I'm looking for new Lions shows. Does anybody have any recommendations?" Which is kind of ironic because there's so many out there. By this time, I'm 100% rocked on Detroit Lions. And then I see Tim Brandon respond, "Yes, in fact, here's a link." And he sent out the link to the Rocked on Detroit Lions show. So immediately I was like, oh, of course he listens to the show. It makes perfect sense. And so I wanted to reach out to him, especially when the season ended, knowing that Tim has a coaching background. He's very knowledgeable on the game of football, on Detroit Lions. And so I said, this makes too much sense not to try to make happen. So fortunately, he was able to join us. Tim, we'll kind of hit on some of your background a little bit, but we want to give you the floor. Just kick us off here. Kind of give us a little bit of your background. When did Detroit Lions fandom become a thing for you? How and why did it become a thing for you out there in California? And just kind of give us and listeners a little bit of an understanding as to who you are.
Yeah, I've been a Lions fan my whole life, since I was, I want to say 3. I know some people have seen me tweet out the picture in 3rd grade and stuff when we had hat day, and I made a Lions helmet out of a cardboard box. And it just grew from there. I went from, not understanding football as like a little kid and just liking the color and the logo, to when I finally started to understand football. I just ended up just sticking with the Lions.
Well, you stuck with the Lions. That's an achievement in and of itself. So I guess maybe I don't know this, but have you always been in California?
Yeah, I was born in Tarzana, California, and then moved back east to New Jersey. I lived in Trenton, Atlantic City, Ocean City, and then at around 10 years old, which was like 4th grade, me and my mom, we drove across country in a U-Haul back to California.
Wow.
And I've been out here ever since.
You had your chance, man. You're on the East Coast. You could have been
I was
hoisting up a Lombardi this year with your friends in Philly.
Nah, never.
You had your chance, but you know what? We'll have our chance soon. So you've been on both coasts, right? You're in the Golden State. you're a coach, which we'll get into all that stuff. But outside of football, I guess, I mean, tell us a little bit more about you though. Like so you're from California, you moved to the, New Jersey area. You're in California now. You've been a Lions fan your whole life. Tell me a little bit about this helmet that you made. What is that all about?
Yeah, the teacher it was hat day, come into school with like a crazy hat or whatever. And I colored out the logo, glued it on the side of the cardboard box. I made I had the old face mask with the bar right here.
Oh yeah.
And it's on my Twitter. And I still have a picture. I think my mom has it hanging up on her fridge still. That's Lions fandom right there. I'm in 3rd grade with a cardboard helmet.
Those are the epic stories. I love hearing about the little things like that because it's always something for somebody. Was it you, Riley, that somehow like found a helmet that was a Lions helmet? Someone said that they found a helmet at one point that it was a Lions helmet and they don't know where it came from and it ended up being. Yep. Is that you, Riley?
Yeah, it was. I had a photo album my grandma gave me, and I'm flipping through it, and I was in the backyard. I wish I could find it. I got to find it. I'm like, 3 years old, super fat. I had a mullet because my dad had a mullet. So, I think they were having some fun at my expense, but I'm holding a Detroit Lions helmet. And I went around asking everybody in the family, like, whose helmet was this? Where did this come from? And nobody knew. So I'm like, I guess it's just meant to be.
It was meant to be. So I guess, is that what really sparked your passion for football? I mean, at such a young age, I mean, you're coloring a helmet for the Detroit Lions. Or I guess, was there a particular moment or a person, something that happened that influenced you to really start gravitating, into coaching or just liking football overall?
I think, and I joke around, but really what started my fandom and my passion with the Lions is my uncle. I blame him. I joke around. I blame him for it. He could have had me root for any team, but it was the Lions. But he was a big Billy Sims fan and Barry Sanders fan. And so when he would go out and teach me football, because not to get into that, but I grew up without a dad, so he was like the father figure, and he would always teach me football, and we would go outside and play one-on-one, and he would be like, you're the Lions, I'm gonna be the Raiders, because he was a Raider fan at the time, but he liked Billy Sims. So, and that's where I was like, oh, I like the color, I like the logo. And then when Barry came along, it was, you're Barry Sanders. And so I would try to do the moves and everything like that. And it was really just him, man. And just growing up with him, kind of making me be the Lions and some of his favorite players. And that's how it stuck.
How could you not love Billy Sims in the 80s and then Barry Sanders at the end of the 80s? And big shout out to your uncle, man, for stepping up, being a good dude, hopefully, in your life. Riley, why don't you get us into the coaching journey and let's see where Tim takes us here as to what he's been up to the last many years.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll say it I'm sure it helps, Tim, having the, photographic proof that your Lions fandom was real and was real at an early age. I know, nobody would have ever accused you of being a bandwagon fan until, maybe 2 years ago, but really last year. And then so you've got photographic proof to fall back on.
The Lions Twitter followed me because of that picture.
Really?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. So, I know, again, seeing you, I know that you're very knowledgeable on every position, both sides of the football, but what positions have you coached? What are you coaching now? It kind of give us an understanding as to what you do on the sidelines.
Throughout my life, I got my first coaching job at 18, and it was I coached a youth, and I was the offensive coordinator. And then throughout my life, I've coached youth, I've coached semi-pro, I've coached an adult women's team, and high school. And throughout that time, I've coached every position. I've been a position coach, I've been a coordinator, both offense, defense, special teams. I've been a head coach for, at all those levels. And, right now, this year with Antelope Valley, the Antelopes, I'm the JV head coach and quarterback coach.
So with being a quarterback coach, obviously you get experience with a lot of different, I hate to use the word divas, but, especially at such a young age. What is it like now with young kids at the quarterback position, having all of these different tools at their disposal, right? They're growing up with VR, they're growing up with crazy video games, but the internet alone is such a wealth of knowledge. I mean, YouTube, you name it, they have so much information and training facilities. Where have you watched, I guess, the quarterback position grow from even 10 years ago?
Um, just like you said with technology, like when I was in high school playing, it was like we didn't even have what's called huddle, where you
Yep.
can exchange game tapes just through internet. The coaches had to like exchange tapes, and like again when I was playing, like you didn't have all the YouTube and where you can just click and watch a breakdown, of Chad Pennington talking about cover two or Jeff Garcia or anybody like that. And now it's if we don't get a lot of time on the practice field, I can send a link, in our group chat to any of the players, like, hey, watch this drill, watch this breakdown. This is what I was talking about, on the field, so that you can hear it from somebody else besides just your coach.
That's a good point because I always felt like, I coached my kids obviously, and I honestly wanted someone else to kind of step in between and be that buffer, because sometimes you have relationships with whether it's your kids or somebody else's kids, and you're trying to coach them up, and it's just like there's that barrier there where they don't want to listen to you. You tell them the right thing to do, but if somebody else tells them, oh, it's gospel, that has to be right. Even though you've told them 50 times since Sunday, and it's just that one person that's not. Yeah, I get it. What have you really learned about yourself coaching up kids and being inside, high school athletics? We heard from like Teddy Bridgewater this last season. He had his first real season as a head coach down in Florida, and he kept just talking about the kids and how the kids were so impactful, not only to him, but I mean, it's the impact that he's able to leave for the kids and teaching these kids. So how has this experience been for you? I mean, what are your favorite aspects of coaching football at this stage, and what have you learned?
Um, yeah, I think one of my favorite aspects is like teaching. When I first got into coaching, it was just to stay around the game. I was coming to the realization that like my playing days were over, and I was like, well, I just want to be around football. I can coach. And then once you start coaching it, you like you're realizing, um, man, you really don't know everything that you think you do. And now you're helping mold like younger kids that are learning football, and um you have to take it serious, because you're in some cases you're this kid's first experience with the game, and you can either ruin it for them and they'll hate the sport, or you'll teach them and they'll love it, and they'll come back to you, 10 years after you've coached them, and introduce you to their wife and kids and make you feel super old, which happened to me recently.
There's nothing wrong with that. It sounds like a good relationship and a bond was formed there. But you're right. I mean, I could absolutely see where these are impressionable young minds. You can lead them to water, right, or an empty pond, and that's like the fork. I'm either going to bring them to something where they can prosper, or I'm going to bring them somewhere where they're going to forget about this game completely and quickly, and it's just not going to work out. So what really inspired you, I guess, to become a coach? I mean, I think you said you wanted to be around football. You didn't want to leave, the game too far away. Is that your real inspiration, or was there anything else going on there?
Yeah, it like I said, it started off, and I'll be honest, it started off just like the kind of like selfish, like I just want to be part of the game, and I can be a coach, and I can do this, I can call plays. And then once you, like I said, once you start getting around the kids, and you realize that you're teaching them and you're molding them, and I think one of the things that clicked with me, uh in one of the years, was I was explaining why we do something, why this drill is gonna um you know correlate with what we do on the field. And I saw it click. I saw like a light bulb go off in this kid's head, and then he started uh doing it on the field, and it worked, and he came back and he was super excited, and that's when I was like, you know what, um this could be something that I want to continue to do.
So it sounds like it kind of started off as you're going to give it a shot, and then it turned into, I think I'm good at this, and you're seeing the impact that it's leaving, with these kids. I think that's great. Everyone faces big challenges, obviously, either when you get started or, during the process, daily. I mean, there's all sorts of different challenges that not only people face, but as a coach, it could be financial implications that the school just doesn't have funds, or you don't have proper uniforms or gear. What are some of the challenges that you have faced at the high school level, trying to teach these kids to play football, but also just to do your job, just to be a coach?
Like you nailed a good one. Sometimes there's not enough like funding to go into the program, so you got to make do. Sometimes, if like the school's kind of on a downturn, you don't get enough players, or you don't have enough to like have depth, so you got to go two-way players. Um, one of the biggest challenges, and a lot of people may not understand what I mean by saying this, but like one of the biggest challenges is learning that not every player responds to the same type of coaching.
Hmm.
You have 50, 60 kids out there that different attitudes, different personalities, different backgrounds, and some of them might respond to yelling and being in your face and being really aggressive. Others will shut down at that, and you have to coddle them. I know me as a player, I had to be yelled at. I had to be told that I was terrible and I'm gonna lose the game and throw a pick or this and that, and then I responded. Other kids can't. They'll just take their helmet off and I'm not going to deal with this. So it's trying to find that balance of being tough, but respecting them and showing them that you care about them, and they're not just a football player. You care about them as a person.
So before Riley gets into a few more questions here, where do you see, I guess, where have you seen you just mentioned something that just sparked, not enough players, right? Not having enough players. And that can be a multitude of things, right? It could be the area you live in, the size of the school, the community. It could be a lot of different things. Have you seen a drawback of kids wanting to play football at a younger age because of the head injuries and the other major injuries that comes with playing football or any violent sport, or not? Which way do you see the game kind of trending? Do you feel it's getting more safe at the high school level as well? I guess would be another good question.
Um, I think like with us in California, I think like the rules that are being implemented, I get the intention of trying to make the game safe. Like we're only allowed uh like 14 days before our first game to be in full pads. You only get like 90 minutes a week of contact. Um and I understand it, but in the same token, like I think that's a detriment, because it sounds barbaric, but you kind of have to like tenderize, your body and get used to it. You gotta hit, you gotta make contact, you gotta learn how to tackle. With the head injuries, I think when it's first started to become a big thing, I think a lot of parents were scared of it and kept their kids out. But I think, as long as you get good coaching, and that's one thing that I'm always like, you before you sign your kid up for football, like look at who's coaching them. There's a lot of youth coaches that aren't certified, that really don't know what they're doing. And you see videos on Twitter all the time, and I just
Great
roll my
point.
eyes at some of these drills where I'm like, this isn't even a tackling drill. These two kids are just going head to head and then fighting, and everybody's cheering it. But I don't see. I mean, I'm starting to see like more and more kids show up and wanting to play. Um, so yeah, that's I just
Yeah.
kind of trailed off right there.
No, you're good. No, so I was just trying to feel it out to see, if you're seeing more or less kids. I mean, obviously California has been a hotbed, for players. I don't know exactly which area you're in, or the size of the schools in your area there in the valley, but California has always been a hotbed for really good players. I mean, obviously some really good football schools out there. Riley had some questions for you, talking more about your Lions connection, right? More about like the Lions fandom that lives within Tim. And then I would love to get into talking about the Lions this last couple of seasons, the draft's upcoming. You know, we got free agency next week. So I'd love to dive in and get into your brain a little bit about what you see there and some X's and O's as we talk more about the defense and what this team needs. So Riley, what do you got for Lions connection here?
Yeah, I just want to say as well, there were so many gems, Tim, that I think you said there that I'm like, man, I'm holding on to it mentally and I feel it. Like, you know, there's your love for football is so strong, and that, as is Will's. You know, that's loving the Lions is what has the three of us on this call right now. It's anybody that's watching right now, they probably are fans of the Detroit Lions, and so beyond your coaching ability, we would like to know just tell us your earliest memory as a Detroit Lions fan. Is there a game, a play, a moment that really stands out to you as kind of being like a defining moment? Like when you think back, like, yeah, I remember that as a kid. Like, man, I love the Lions.
Yeah, I think my earliest memory is watching the 91 playoff win versus Dallas. That's the earliest thing that I can remember sitting and watching and just being happy and excited and thinking, man, we're a good team. You know, I'm a naive little kid. We're gonna win at everything, and then 30 years later, still before last year, waiting like, man, it really didn't happen again.
It took some time for
Yeah.
sure. Who are some of your favorite all-time Detroit Lions players, and maybe players that you admire the most? Maybe not, you know, of course you have the Berries, the Calvins, but who are your favorite players all time that have had an influence on you?
Um, I think you go back. Herman Moore is one of the guys that I love. I think a lot of younger fans don't understand that he really was Megatron before Megatron. Like that, people don't understand how good Herman Moore was. I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He one of the best Lions to ever play. A couple other players like Robert Porcher, I think was really good. Obviously, Chris Spielman. I'll throw a name out that maybe not a lot of people understand, but I was a big Ron Rice fan, at safety. Um, and I get killed for it all the time, but I like Jeff Backus. I thought Jeff Backus did a good job. I'll argue with people like he wasn't as bad as everybody wants to say. And then you go more modern. I always will be a Stafford fan. Um, don't get me, I rooted for him to win the Super Bowl in 21, but don't get me wrong, I booed him. I booed him for that playoff game. I didn't boo his kids, but I booed him. you know. Um, and Dominican Sue was another one, and I think aside from all the the extra stuff that he did, that's a player that like anytime I'm coaching defense or defensive line, I show highlights. I'm like, that's the attitude you need to have. Like
Yeah.
you have to have that attitude. And
Relentless.
then you go more modern. I mean, pick a player on the team.
Right.
Kirby, Branch, Gibbs, St. Brown, Monty, Jack Campbell. Again, I'll throw out there's tweets out there from me where I was pounding the table for him, saying we got to take him at 18, and people were killing me for it. No, he's a second round. I'm like, we have to either take him at 18 or trade back to get or into the first round to get him. And when they took, man, I scared my dog when they drafted him. I was excited. But I'd have to say, really, my favorite player right now on the team is JMO.
That's awesome, dude. You're right. Exactly. All the current that's the gift of being a Lions fan right now. It's like take your pick, man. Where do you go? Will, which of those names that he just rattled off are any of those tugging at your heartstrings?
Well, I mean, they're all great, right? I mean, there's a lot of players that you just mentioned, but I think that when you talk about a player like Ndamukong Suh, such a rare breed of size and athletic ability, and he's a gentle giant off the field. But once he approaches that sideline, it's like that switch happens. And that it's that switch as a coach, you have to figure out how to turn it on. And the player has to figure out how to utilize everything they have within them for 60 minutes or 48 minutes or whatever it is in a high school football game now. It's 12-minute quarters. You've got to be able to pull it out of them. And that's the hardest part, I think, being a former coach myself, is how do you just get inside a kid's head to get them to understand this is the only time that it matters is right now, not tomorrow, not when you're talking about it at lunch. It's just right now. And some guys get it, some guys don't. So obviously there's a ton of memories as a Lions fan, but I would like to talk a little bit more about what's coming up. So we've been blessed the last couple of years or last couple of seasons as Lions fans. And we've all been waiting for this to happen. I guess the first real question I have for you is, are you in this, do you see where some Lions fans are maybe a little bit greedy right now? Like we have this immediate gratification need that we have to win now. It's only now. If we don't do it now, we're never going to get it. Or do you feel like maybe there's a growing demand that we want to win because we just haven't been there yet? Where do you see fans, are they reacting the right way? Or, I mean, should we stay a little bit more humble? Should we be a little bit more patient? Is Brad doing the right things? I guess kind of just lay it all out there for a moment and give us your elevator pitch about the Lions, front office and the team and what it looks like and where it's going. And then we'll talk about free agency and draft and all that next.
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I can understand being greedy and wanting to go all in and F them picks and trade this guy and sign this guy and make sure that we get it. And because like Dan Campbell said, you never know when you're going to get back. And it was proven this year. We didn't even get back to the NFC Championship. Granted, there's reasons for it, but still, you look at Dan Marino. His second year was, lit the world on fire and I'm going to be here every year and never went back. So I get the like stress of wanting to go all in and win it now, because as Lions fans, and I'll say it, like we're not just in football, but in sports, man, the Lions were one of the worst organizations that just couldn't pull it together. I'll argue with anybody from NFL, baseball, basketball, anywhere. Like you don't have it as bad as Lions fans. So I understand people's, desire to get a winner, but at the same, in the same breath, it's like, hold on a minute, because it's being built the right way. And we've never seen back-to-back division championships. We've never seen 15 wins, especially with, practice squad backup guys. And they were still winning. So, me personally, I can see it as a fan, but I can also see it in another light of let Brad Holmes do his thing. They've got a plan, and it's worked. It's worked so far. Has it won a championship? No, but 31 other teams don't win a championship either, and they're upset at the end of the year too. But I think we're headed in the right direction under Brad Holmes.
I agree wholeheartedly there that we're doing the right things, or Brad's doing the right things. The Lions organization is doing the right things, bringing in the right players. The contracts are smart. The coaching staff is savvy. The schemes are, well-defined and different, right? I think everything from top to bottom has been changed since, Patricia and Quinn were the leaders of this franchise. It is kind of a slow process, where you've got to build it. You've got to build the base. You've got to build the foundation. But I'm kind of getting this feeling that our backs are up a wall, or, against the wall right now. And part of that is because the Lions have legit about 6 or 7 more contracts that they need to extend between now and the end of next year. So at the beginning of 2026's new league year, there's like 6 contracts that could be extended. So I think that's where the pressure is now, is this year. I think there's a little bit more pressure added to this. Eric and I were talking about this marshmallow test, and it's, do we want all our marshmallows now, or were we willing to wait a year and, get 2 marshmallows next year versus 1 this year? And I kind of say, I think we do need some marshmallows right now. We do need some players right now, but how are we going to keep everybody? So have you given that any thought? You've got Aiden Hutchinson and JMO that are on the clock right now for extensions or 5th year. And then we have Brian Branch, Sam Laporta, Jack Campbell. Who am I missing? Jameer Gibbs, Jameer Gibbs. Those 4 players next season. So that's 6 contracts that legit need to get extended potentially to keep these guys, to keep this core together. Or do you feel like, yep, we're going to have some sad days and some players they're just going to move on? You got Kirby too. Can't forget about Kirby.
Yeah, I think with how the salary cap's going up, that definitely is going to help. I do believe though that the Lions have the right culture in place, just from the outside. Obviously, I'm not in the locker room, but um, they have the right culture in place to where players, won't take a huge hometown discount, but they might be like, hey, you know what? Let me maybe take a little bit less to stay here and build and help build something, or rather than go chase the money. I could be wrong, but that's the feeling that I get. Certain players might not feel that way and might tweet out, pay me and this and that. But I think for the most part, they're drafting guys that see the importance of bringing a winner to the city of Detroit.
Okay, so you brought it up. Carlton Davis tweeted out, if you want your defense to be better, check the tape, pay me. How did you take that tweet? How did you take that statement from Carlton Davis? He said, I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. I'm not sure what he meant by that. Did he take a cheap deal with the Bucks? And I mean, did he get screwed over with the Bucks or something? Because I don't think that we did anything but trade for him.
Yeah, me personally, I think he meant like he's not gonna make the same mistake on the field. Like he's not gonna get beat by the same thing. And pay me. I mean, he has every right to. He had a great season, and I know a lot of fans will be like, well, you can't pay him because he missed games and he always missed games. But I mean, how often does a broken jaw happen?
Right.
Like that I can understand a tweaked hamstring or an ankle or just just the same injuries, but a broken jaw is a little bit rare. But those same fans that say you can't pay him because he missed games think he's gonna get a bag from 12 different teams out there. But it's like those teams see the same thing that we see. He missed games throughout his career, had a good season, and missed games again. So it's got to be one or the other. Me personally, I want him back. And if it was what's the market, like 3 years, 45 million? I mean, yeah, here you go.
I love the continuity factor. I do. I think that I think the Lions would be wise to bring him back. I just don't know that. Again, it goes back to the first question was, okay, you bring Carlton in at 3 years for 45 million. What are you doing with Kirby? Because you can't pay. I mean, Kirby's on the last year of his deal. Assuming he plays it out and his agent doesn't tell him to sit, Kirby's up for an $18 million a year extension. Then what about Branch next year? And then what about Terrion Arnold in 2 more seasons? It's just like it keeps getting worse and worse and worse when it comes to money. Yeah, the cap went up 30. That's 1, maybe 2 contracts at a max deal when they start to hit, and the extensions kick in. So I guess I'll ask you again, like, do you feel like this team is going to be in a little bit of trouble to keep the core? And because of that, whether you agree or disagree, are we going to lose out on an opportunity to retain players like a Carlton Davis or bring back a Kevin Zeitler or go out and spend, a decent chunk of money in free agency on 1 or 2 really good players like Jamie and Sherwood or Ojulari or something like that. So I guess where you did a mock the other day of some contracts and you kind of were up against the wall for a minute there, when you'd put it in. So what do you think?
Yeah, I did the whole mock and everything, and I did what everybody wanted. I traded for Miles. I re-signed everybody, and man, in like 2 years, we were like 90 something million over the cap. And I was like, well, that's down the road. We don't got to worry about that now. But you're gonna have to worry about it. But I think me personally, I would figure out a way to keep Kirby. You got Brian Branch, who he still has 2 years before you really have to worry about it. Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to start thinking about it next year, but he still has 2 years. Gibbs, he has 2 years. Same thing with Campbell. So, but with Gibbs and Campbell, you can do the option. So you have 3 more years with them to work on the contracts. I think with guys I love Kevin Zeitler, but at 34, what, 1 more year maybe, and then he can go. Carlton, and like I said, I would do it. I love Carlton Davis, but I'm not sacrificing Kirby Joseph for Carlton Davis.
I think that's a good statement. Yeah, and I think that what you were alluding to with the contracts is, yeah, when you sign a rookie in the first round, you have 5 years of control. You have 4 plus the option. And I think what I'm referring to is after 3 years, these players can start to ask for a new contract. And when I look at the individual of Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean, how could you not want to extend him, right? How could you turn him away and say, yeah, sorry, you're going to have to play through it? Yep, you signed a contract, and yep, you're going to have to play through it no matter what. But I think that there's like an agent consideration here where at some point these players are being told to sit and sit out. And I can't imagine that these guys would, because like Brad says, if we've got the right players, they're not going to do that. But anyway, that's where I was going with that. After 3 years, new contracts can get rolling, and that's what we're looking at right now is we're up against it next year with 6 more deals that need to get done potentially. So Riley has questions for you.
Yeah, there's 2 that really come to mind for me. The first one I almost feel like is a little bit unfair, but I feel like, Tim, I trust your knowledge on this one to have an answer for us. But to date, what is, in your opinion, the single best move that Brad Holmes has made?
And that's a tough one, because I mean, you could say drafting Panay,
It's a good answer.
being patient and reassuring Sheila when she was kind of freaking out about a wide receiver, and then drafting St. Brown, not extending Galladay. But I think, to take a quote straight from Brad Holmes, it's the moves that he's made and haven't made, uh, that has been his best work. And I think it's staying true to his philosophy and his belief and structure on how to build the team. I think that's been his best move. It's not one single move that he's made. I think it's just his overall structure.
That's a damn good answer. That's a coach answer right there. But you know what? I agree with you. That makes sense. And you mentioned philosophy. Brad Holmes sticking to his philosophy. One thing that I've learned so much, especially since I discovered Rockhound Detroitlions, is how things work on a football field. Not just my fandom, but watching the X's and O's. Can you talk to us a little bit? You're good, brother. Can you talk to us a little bit and tell us, what is your defensive line philosophy?
Um, Man, and I'll probably get killed by some people, but I think it's more pressure. Um, if we can get pressure on the quarterback and disrupt his steps, disrupt his timing, disrupt his reads, um, that's important to me. Sacks are great. Sacks get you paid. I heard a quote from a player that was, in 16 games, if you get a sack a game, you're getting 30 million a year. But if you're just getting that 1 sack and that's it for the game, how much did you impact the game? I know when I played, and we spoke about it, I played quarterback. Pressure up the middle frustrated me. I made mistakes. I got flustered. Um, you know, um, and I think that was more like, all right, I got sacked, cool. Well, I can come back and complete, a 15-yard pass. We got a first down, great. But if you pressure me on first down, I make a bad throw. Pressure me on second down, I can't get to my read. And on third down, now I got happy feet. I'm seeing goes. I'm trying to get the ball out quick because I'm not trying. I'm trying to avoid that pressure or the sack coming. Um, I think if you can constantly apply pressure, and again, don't get me wrong, sacks are great, but we're not getting the Aiden Hutchinson 5 sacks a game every week. You know, I think if you can get double digit pressures and just disrupt what the offense is trying to do, that to me is more important.
it's a little bit like the anticipation of fear is worse than fear itself, right? So as you're a quarterback, if you get sacked, all right, fine, pick me up. I'll go throw a strike 15 yards. We move the chains. It's not that big of a deal, but it's more the thought, right? And that's what we saw happen in the Super Bowl with Mahomes. Just like if that constant threat is there, it changes how you play. So I think that Will, does that not sound kind of like everything that you've been talking about for a very long time now?
Yeah, I mean it's very similar. I've always felt that natural pressure is the best way to operate. If you have to manufacture pressure, then you do. I mean, if the scheme calls for it, the offensive scheme. Matter of fact, let me ask you a question about scheme. And again, I don't know you from Adam, right? We've never spoken. We've never chatted offline. So I don't want you to ever agree with me, but I want to know, when you saw what was going down in the Commanders game with our defense, and then later you find out that Glenn pressured 54.6% of plays. What was your immediate reaction? One, as you're watching the game. Two, after you found out what went down, and what would you have done different and why? Not to put you on the spot here, but I kind of have to.
I think it was evident early on that the game plan that they went into wasn't working. I think, and not to give anything or take anything away from the guys out on the field, but they couldn't handle the scheme that he wanted to run. But I think a lot of it too kind of hurt the defense was just the turnovers. We kind of put the defense in a bad spot with that 3rd and 1 whatever play call was that got the I understand
with the
the
pass,
reasoning. Yeah, I get it. They had the look, but before that, you were getting 6 yards, 8 yards, 9 yards, 6 yards, like just run it. And I think sometimes, like, and I give Ben a lot of credit, but a lot of times I would tweet out, man, he got too cute sometimes, and it bothered me. Just run the ball. Like, I know you get the look, and we all get excited because you're on the sideline. And you're like, oh, there it is. But just keep the kind of. If we score there and we just continue to run the ball against a team that couldn't stop the run, we're going to help out the defense. And maybe Glenn doesn't have to keep trying to apply pressure to stop the bleeding.
So when I did the pregame analysis, I always look at the patterns, right? So I feel like I'm a good student of the game by watching some tape, by going over all of the statistical analysis from the previous games. And when I'm looking at Washington, and I see, I'm going to try to pull this from memory. Jaden Daniels was the number 1 quarterback against the blitz. When he faced more of a blitz, he was better. He got better and better and better. And so I'm thinking, there's no way that Aaron Glenn is going to go and blitz the RPO. You don't blitz an RPO anyway. That is, you're just asking to be crucified unless you have the right defense.
You're taking the bait.
Yeah, you are taking the bait, but unless you have the right defensive players, you can't blitz. You can blitz to a degree, but you can't blitz everybody. So anyway, I'm reading up on all of this. I'm explaining, obviously, to everybody in the audience leading up to the game. I'm like, there's no way we're going to blitz. We can't blitz. Just look at the pattern. He gets better when he gets blitzed. He's the best quarterback this year as a rookie against the blitz. Not going to happen. No way. And then I hear Tom Brady before the game, and I hear Strahan before the game, and they're thinking, yeah, we don't think that Aaron Glenn's going to go into this game and blitz a whole lot. We think he's going to try to contain, and well, none of that happened. None of that. We just blitz like crazy. So I'm hearing these guys say it, and I'm like, okay, this is what Glenn's going to do. We're going to be fine. And it's like the first quarter, man. It's like, holy cow, you're just blitzing this guy. He's getting around you. He's getting to his reads. He's finding the progressions. He's getting the outlet passes. The running back's going crazy here or there. And then before you know it, I mean, it's like the lights are just getting turned out on us. So it was really disappointing to watch. And I'm sure as a coach, you probably are pulling your hair out. Because it's like, why can't, so let me ask you that. During a game, you're going into the game with a game plan. At the high school level, it's probably a little bit easier to change, but how difficult is it to change philosophy mid-game?
It's not difficult if you work on it during the week. At the high school level, you don't, at least in my experience, you don't have to change too much what you're doing. Um, but if you've been working on one aspect all week and then you go into the game and by the second quarter you're like now you're on the sideline trying to coach and change up and explain you're dead. You're dead in the water. You can't. The game is not the time to start coaching. It's time to explain kind of what you saw and then go into it and keep going. But if you start, okay, well, our zone blocking is not going to work, so we're going to start going. We're going to start going man blocking and this and that. Now you're taking away time to coach your kids up, and now you're reteaching something that you shouldn't be teaching during a game anyway, if that makes sense. I kind
No,
of
it does. No, I think what it means, if I were to wrap it up, I would say Glenn went into the game with a plan, and there's no way he could get out of that plan without changing too much or having to get all the coordinators and coaches, in line to change what they're doing. You're talking high level scheme,
Yeah, and I think he got in trouble because I'm sorry, I think he got in trouble too because everybody knew you can't blitz him, you can't blitz him. So I mean, and I could be wrong. Maybe part of it was, well, I'm going to blitz him. I'm going to show you that we can, and that would work if we didn't have 97 guys on IR. If we didn't have practice squad players, because you think about it, we had starters, then we had starters backups, then we had backups, then we had then our backups got hurt. Like it would have maybe worked if we had Aiden, if we had Rodrigo, if we had everybody that we at the beginning of the year, but we didn't have anybody to run that scheme. And I'm always and I learned this as a player, and I kind of carried it over, is if you're blitzing to stop the pass, you're gonna lose. You blitz to stop the run. You could throw in a blitz every once in a while to get pressure and surprise the offense and get to the quarterback. But if you're constantly blitzing to stop the pass, you're gonna get burned.
Yeah, I knew we were in trouble when my phone started to ring and it said Dan Campbell, get your pads and meet us at the airport. I knew we were in trouble then. There's no way I was ever going to play again.
But it wasn't a lack.
Now we're transitioning into free agency, right? And I think that when you look at Calvin Shepard, by the way, what do you think about Calvin Shepard and the decision the Lions made there?
I'm excited.
Yeah. Do you think they're going to change anything, from what we did last year? A lot of man, or you feel it's going to be relatively the same, maybe a little different here or there? I mean, what's your thoughts?
I think he's gonna stick with what works, what he knows, and what he's been taught. But he's gonna add a little bit of his own,
little flair to it.
His own little flair to it. Me personally, I hope we stick with the more man. I think we have the players to do it. But I hope that if he notices that it's not really working, maybe change it a little bit. I think both coordinators got stuck in their ways of we can do this, and I think it bit us sometimes.
Oh, it absolutely did. To be honest with you, I love the man defense. I do. And I feel like the linebacker room, for whatever reason, has probably been the most ignored room. And yeah, we brought in Jack, but I mean, bringing back Derek and Germ and, like Malcolm is good, but he's not great. We only had Alex Anzalone and Jack. Alex is good. He can be great at times, but he's also suspect at times. I think that the linebacker room was left in peril, quickly. I do believe that we do stay with more of the man defense, but that's another question for you as a coach. When you draft specific players to run a specific scheme, it's not like you can just throw them into a different scheme all the time. Some guys are scheme versatile. Most guys are not. Like when you see a 3-4 outside linebacker, they are typically not a great 4-3 Sam or Will linebacker. It's just a different scheme. Some guys have the versatility and the agility to be able to do it. Some guys don't. When you have to cover more, some guys just can't get it. Maybe they don't have the skill set. So I think that when we look at these things, the scheme has to be fairly comparable to what it was before because of the players that we have now. Now we're going to get about 20, 30 new players this year, but that's where I want to go next. What are you thinking, free agency next week? Is there anybody on your mind? And where do you think the Lions really need to address this team?
Yeah, free agency. One of the guys that kind of crossed my mind, but I was pretty sure he wouldn't leave Philly, and it hit today was Zach Bond.
Yep.
I knew he wasn't going to leave Philly. I think one of the guys, and I believe I've heard you talk about it on the show before, was Aziz Ojulari.
Yep.
I would love to see him. I think he's not going to be expensive, just because of how the Giants handled him. They benched him, they started him, they benched him, then he came in his rotation. But I think I would love to see him in a Lions uniform. The fan in me, knowing that it's going to be a little bit unrealistic, but Milton Williams, I could see. And when we get to the draft, you'll see why I like the interior of the defensive line. But I know the price tag is going to be unrealistic, whether Philly keeps him or somebody just, unloads the Brinks truck for him. I think Dre Greenlaw would be a good addition. And I think it's realistic mainly because he missed a year, and no one's going to give him a huge contract because of that. He missed a year. He's coming off the injury. Nick Bolton, I think, is a good 3-down linebacker that could come in. Again, we brought it up at DB. I'd like Carlton Davis, but would I sacrifice other players, younger players, for him? No. I think like Terrell Dotson would be a good rotational piece.
Terrell Dotson.
I'm gonna butcher his name. Dio Abin.
Oh, Ode. We call him
yes,
Ode.
thank you,
Ode.
Ode.
Just Ode.
If you look at him, he's had I believe it's like 34 sacks and quarterback hits in the last 2 years. Like that's good. That's good production. I think
big money.
That he would be good. Zeitler, I said it earlier, like Zeitler. I don't see Zeitler getting a $12-13 million deal from someone. And if someone offers him that and we turn it, I'd bump him up a little bit if he wants to come back. I'm pretty sure I've read that he wants to come back. Iffy and Barnes, Melifonwu and Barnes, like I'd love to have them back, but it really depends. I really see both of them going to the Jets. And then at receiver, I'll throw a curveball out there. I'd look at Darius Slayton. I think bringing him in, I don't, I could be wrong, but I don't think he would be a huge expensive addition. But I was kind of hoping. Yeah, I believe he's a free agent. I was kind of hoping that they trade for him last year after the joint practices.
Interesting. Riley, what's on your mind? What questions do you have?
Yeah, I think that rolls right into we'd like to know, Tim, we just talked free agency, but as far as on the draft front, what positions would you like to see the Lions address, or maybe the position and the player?
With the draft, I'm in the best player available crowd.
Okay.
I think if you take the best player available, you're not going to go wrong. You're going to have good players. I think if you draft because of need, and like last year, Brad Holmes said, best player available matched with. I mean, granted they traded up for him, but it matched with the need. With Terry and Arnold, great. That's great, but sometimes you're reaching for a player that maybe shouldn't be taken there. We see it all the time with quarterbacks. A team's going to take a quarterback this year, and it's like, why? Is there one worthy of a top 5? So I think if you draft based on need, you're going to get in trouble. At 28, if we just sit, it really, really depends. Like Mike Green, his speed's great, but I feel like he struggles to set the edge. Nick Scorton, he has good bend, but he's not the consistent run defender. Jaheed Campbell, I think, is more of a wait and see the play develop rather than an instinct player. And again, I could be wrong on everything. It's just things that I see. the two guys that I'm very intrigued and would be is Walter Nolan. Um, he's got speed and power as a 3 tech, and I really think he can move all over the line. He's a good run defender. He's a great interior pass rusher. And then with Aleem missing time, I think him and Wingo with DJ would be a good three-headed monster in the interior. He's mean. He's versatile. Will would have a problem because his arms are short. But
Well, who are you talking about? Hold on. Who was it?
Nolan from Ole Miss.
Walter Nolan.
Walter Nolan.
Yeah.
So let me comment on Nolan. So there's a time or two when you can get away with some arm insufficiency or syndromes, I guess we'll go with it. The T-Rex arm syndrome. There's some times you can get away with it. Walter Nolan is probably one of the most polished defensive tackles coming out of this draft, in my opinion. His work ethic, I mean, the way that he just splits the offensive line, I mean, the guy knows what he's doing. He reads, he reacts, he always has his eyes on the football. He knows where he's going. He knows where he needs to be. Yeah, he still has work to do. Yeah, his arms are 32.5 inches. It's a little on the light side, but if you make up for it in other ways, and see, what I don't have is I don't have all of the agility scores. I want to say that I watched him do some testing, and I still had him pretty high, but I got a lot of other guys higher right now than Walter Nolan, especially at 28.
Go ahead, Tim.
Go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think like another player, and I tweeted this out, and I had a couple people just like roast me, and if Brad does this, then he should be fired. But Landon Jackson, like, I think.
All right, there we go.
He's one of my number one guys right now.
His motor reminds me of Hutch. You know, and you can't go wrong getting another player like that. You know, is he gonna wow you with the sack numbers? Probably not, but pressures and his ability to set the edge, like that's, and I talked about that earlier. Like that's what I like. Now, if all those players are sitting there at 28, Mike Green, Scorton, Campbell, if
Nolan.
it were me, I'm taking Nolan. Even though we need an edge, and that's what people think, but I'm taking Nolan. And if there's a way to maybe trade up into the second to snag Landon Jackson, cool. I messed around and did a mock draft, and I traded up and thinking that he would slide, and he was taken right before I was getting ready to. So I was like, okay, cool. But I ended up taking who was it? The guard from Arizona, Jonah. And I think if you get Nolan in the first, and then we can get Jonah in the second, I mean, man, I would love that.
That's a haul. That's I got to give a shout out to listener and friend of the show, Jack Rumsey, because he's a huge Landon Jackson fan as well. And what we know is this beats the hell out of like wondering who we're taking at pick 3 or 2 or 4, right? It's not common for us to be late first round because the Lions win a lot now. And so it's interesting and different position to be in. But those are all well thought out and names that all make sense. But I would ask you, Tim, outside of the obvious of not having so many injuries, what do you feel like the Lions need to do so that next year they win the Super Bowl?
I would say keep their identity, keep staying aggressive, keep going for it on fourth down. Trust that the defense being healthy is going to be better so that you can keep the foot on the gas. And just keep being the Lions that we've seen the last 2 years: win 12 games, win a division; win 15 games, win a division. Keep putting your foot on their throat, pretty much. Like we did against Tennessee and the Colts, and just how we just put up 40 points, 50 points on a bunch of teams. Just steamroll through them. Don't change the philosophy because we have new coordinators and we got to change. Just keep doing what we were doing, because I honestly believe that if we even had half the injuries that we had, we win the Super Bowl. I 100% believe that.
I would wholeheartedly agree. Let me show you my craziness, Tim. I don't know if you've ever seen my craziness. When we talk about arm length, okay, this is my version of, this is my own PFF, right? I'm creating my own spreadsheets that have these crazy formulas, and they're all color coded. And you can see here that purple is elite, right? I purple means power to me. And when you look at this guy, Michael Williams, 34 and 3/8 inch arms, just massive, dude. 10 and a quarter inch hands. He's got elite grades right here for me. The APE score, I don't know if anyone's ever talked about APE, the APE score, where it's the difference between your wingspan and your height. These are the crazy things that I track. Donovan Ezeraku, 1.11 APE score, 34 inch arms. This is a guy I want to see in Detroit. I do, but you know what? There's a lot of other guys I want to see too. So when I put all this stuff together, and you start to see, I can't probably show all this because I don't want someone to steal my stuff, but at the end of the day, when I put all of this stuff together, it's for a reason. And it's because I'm trying to find the next guy, right? I'm trying to figure out where these guys should be drafted. How do they fit in Detroit? Do they fit in Detroit? Are they going to be the next guy? So last year I had Jared Verse as the #1 overall edge. I had Jaden Daniels as the #1 overall quarterback. And all of that was started right here. And it was from the work that I'm doing here. So I would love to work with more people, on this. I would love to get a group of people, smart individuals like yourself, if you ever want to work on the backside of all this.
Absolutely.
To continue to build out this program so that we can compete with the PFFs of the world and create this next wave of analytics to help make us smarter fans, right? And by the way, I am starting a new, it's going to be like a blog site. So big shout out to who for helping me out. The blog site is not just gonna be a blog site, but it's gonna have a merch store. It's gonna have stuff like this that is gonna end up being behind a paywall. So if you want access to all of the measurements, all of the agility scores, all of the combine visits, the top 30 visits, and no one has that on one page. Nobody. But I will. We will. Rockdown Podcast Network will. And we're going to offer it up to everybody so that they can be smarter fans too. What other questions do you have for Tim?
Yeah, let me go over to the crowdsource a few here. If anybody in the chat, we don't want you guys to be neglected. If anybody's got a question for Tim while we've got him, we'd love to have it. And then Will actually came up with this one. I thought this was good, so I'm going to do the honors of asking it. But Tim, actually, literally, as I'm thinking of this, that's one of the other things I've seen you do over the years is you were tweeting mock Lions jerseys before, the new ones that we currently have came out. And I will say, I hope that what we have now, particularly the home ones, I hope those never change. Those could be like the Boston Celtics, like keep them forever. They're classic. But in your opinion, what's your favorite all-time Detroit Lions jersey?
Oh man, I really do love these ones. I think it's a good blend of current and and throwback. You know me, I've been tweeting for what years. Give us a blue face mask. I don't whatever it is. Give us a blue face mask. I hated the grays. I hate the Cardinals because they're gray face masks. Give us a blue face mask.
He was on that for years.
Oh man, and that was one of my things. Just give us a blue face. I hated our old uniforms, the Patricia era ones. Those were terrible. Whoever approved those, I hope works elsewhere. Those were trash.
What do you think about the blacks?
I love the blacks.
They're awesome, aren't they?
It took me a while because I was like, I don't know, but then seeing them and I was like, okay, yeah, I love the blacks. I love the blueberries are cool. I wish the pants had stripes. I do want to see the gray pants. I know we lost against Tampa wearing those, but I want to see those uniforms a little bit more. The blueberries are cool, but give me a stripe. I'm a uniform guy, so I don't like all this real plain. Like, give me a stripe on the shoulder, give me a stripe on the pants, give me something.
Why do we have a lion? Like, You know, why don't they just put a lion on a thigh or on the side? You know, like a
Something simple like that.
yeah. It's those helmets, man, that I think really set off the black unis. Those helmets,
Yeah.
they really tied it together. That blue they say it's the same color, but it does not look like it's the same color. Honolulu blue. It does not look the same.
It's such an upgrade from what we had. See, I will say the jerseys we had during the Patricia era, which the first year I think Caldwell was still the coach, but I felt like they were such an upgrade from before. But now when I see anything old, I'm like, dude, you can't distinguish the numbers.
Yeah,
And
they were bad, and I'll probably be in the minority, but I liked the Calvin Stafford era. I liked the black outline. I was cool with that. Like it was good.
yeah.
But man, yeah, those gray numbers and the gray pajama alternates, those were terrible.
They weren't good. But we have
7
now.
years of that. We deserved to lose all those games just for those alternates.
A question from our guy, owner U of M Dad. Have you coached any player or NFL players when they were younger? Or who are some? Do you have any players that went to the league or went, played somewhere?
Big college or anything?
No one in the league that I've coached. Players that have come out of the area that we're in. One of them was drafted by Houston in the 7th round this year. There's a Charger running back that came out of here. I blanking on the names. But I've had a couple kids that have left and gone to like the JUCO level and ended up winning rings. So that's pretty cool.
One of the coolest things go ahead, Tim.
No, actually, I was going to ask him an NFC North question real quick because I'm seeing this Caleb Williams crap pop up on my feed here. So, what did you think about Ryan Poles bringing in Jonah?
Good for them. Like I don't. I mean, I get it. With Ben Johnson being there, I understand the why. But I go back to he's not bringing Hank Fraley with him, so
exactly. He doesn't have an offensive line whisperer.
Yeah, he wasn't good with the Rams.
Yeah, I think Poles felt the heat and went after Tooney within 24 hours. Like he 100%. Felt the heat after that pick. Probably because I was laughing at him in my video that probably only got 1,000 views. I don't know.
But one of them was him.
Yeah, probably one of them was him. He's watching over here. I can't stand Ryan Poles. All right, so we're up against it here. What would you like to talk about? Tim, is there anything on your mind? Is there anything that you want to talk about? Anything that you'd like to share?
Yeah, we had something or just a little background of me, not just football. I'm big into I'm a big wrestling fan. I know some people might look at that, but I am actually in my off time I am a professional wrestler, so that's something interesting about me. And I do a lot of filming, commercials, short films, music videos, stuff like that. So those are the three passions: football, wrestling, and film.
Now, does the wrestling involve the P. Diddy baby oil?
No.
Okay. Just making sure. Sure. By the truckload over there.
Right.
Hey, our guy Mike P had a question I would like to ask if you have just a second here, Tim. Tim, as you watched the O-line last year, did you see the drop off at tackle on offense as much as I did? That coming from Mike P.
Yeah, I mean, like I saw Decker struggle, but I really do think that there had to have been an injury. I don't think it was where, oh my God, we gotta figure out how to move on and draft somebody and put Manu in right now. I think more of the drop off was just moving Graham to left guard. I think he's never been a left guard, and a lot of people get confused, like, oh well, it's just guard. But going from the right to the left, that changes up everything. That changes up, hand placement, foot placement, things like that. But with that said, I definitely would be hoping that, Manu takes another step, because Decker's 32 now.
Mm-hmm.
We're definitely going to have to look, in a year or two to maybe start moving on from him. And then, I don't know how long Frank Ragnow's toe's gonna hold up.
Yeah, I've been a little bit worried about Frank myself, and I would agree that, you know, Taylor Decker, he's been a liability. When I go back and look at where he was just 3-4 seasons ago, he wasn't giving up what he's given up now. And Ragnow, I mean, he's not giving up anything. But I think you're spot on there with Graham. But I think Graham was one of my number one free agent targets last season to come back. And I was ecstatic at the contract and the way that the Lions were able to bring him back in. But he played left, center, and right guard last year, or the 2 seasons ago, swimmingly. But he sparingly played left guard. But it's just when he was in there, he played so well. I don't know what happened, but something was really off with him this year, and it did not end up well for him. I actually got a couple more small questions here. There's been a lot of conversation about Broderick Martin, and again, I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm only asking because you have experience, obviously, with coaching. You have experience, you know, with players that maybe need a little bit of time. Do you think Broderick Martin was a bad choice, or do you see the other side where Brad hit so many correct? It's kind of hard to get these guys on the field, but to have a project like that, somebody that has that kind of size, do you still, you know, have a little bit of, I guess, hope, or I don't even know what the right word is, that Broderick Martin's going to be just fine?
Yeah. Again, I'll answer it 2 ways. As a fan, I get it, man. You're wasting a spot. I get it. As a coach, though, I there's potential there, and you still have him under contract for 2 more years at cheap. So work with him. Is it a little discouraging that with all the injuries on the D line that he still wasn't even active? Yes, but he was taken with the and regardless that they traded up for him, he was taken with that in mind, that he's a project. Same thing with Manu. Manu was drafted and never once was active. He was a project. And I think that's where the Lions are at. We're good. We can take project players and develop them. And that's a good spot to be in. You know, if you're drafting and you're trying to count on 4 or 5 rookies, how good is your team really? You know, if you're drafting and you're plugging in your first round pick, and he can come in and play great, but your second, third, fourth, should they contribute? Yeah, special teams, but you shouldn't be counting on your whole draft class to come in and play significant reps. So with Martin, hey, if he doesn't show at least some progress, then I can understand, all right, that we might have to move on. But if he's still, he's still working on it. He's gone through this will be his 3rd defensive line coach in 3 years. So he's still kind of, it's hard to adjust that or get adjusted to that.
Yeah, and he made a really nice jump from year 1 to year 2, a body transformation. He was actually playing really well last year in preseason. Granted, just preseason. He was playing really well in the practices where we had joint practices. I saw vast improvement, and we're going to see that again. This guy's been doing nothing but just pounding weights since he hurt his knee. And then that's a great problem to have, that his legs are fresh, right? He hasn't played a whole lot of football. That worries me. You said something earlier when we first got started. I don't know if you said the word, your body was soft or it has to get acclimated, but tenderize. Yeah. So you have to get in there. You have to get in there and get some hits, right? That's the whole thing about preseason is I love to see our players, all the starters, get a little bit of action because they need, their body is soft until it's taken a few hits and a few licks, and you've got to get warmed up to a degree. I think that you have to take a few hits to be ready for a season. But anyway, man,
and that's why I loved the whole fantasy of Hutchinson was going to come back and play if we made it in the Super Bowl. There's no way, even if his leg was your body, he hadn't played since week 6. Like you're not just going to jump in and be ready to play, and you have to acclimate. And that's what I love about Dan Campbell and the Lions is they're not going to, we'll activate your window. You'll be ready, but we're still going to make sure that you get the proper amount of practice time and reps before we throw you in a game.
Yeah. So Kevin Barr has a question. He wants to know, since you're a former quarterback, what's your take on Hendon Hooker? Was it a wasted pick? Do you see any value moving off of him right now for any draft capital do you think would be coming back our way, to a quarterback needy team?
I don't think he's a wasted pick because let's say in 2 or 3 years when we're looking at Goff and Hendon's going to be what 29, 30. He's going to be just right in there ready to go. He might we took him with the injury again to develop him. I think he's worth more staying on the roster than off the roster. He's worth more than what we're not going to get him. And I'm not trying to disrespect, but he's not worth anything. We're not going to get a third rounder. We're not going to get a second rounder. I think some people are like, oh, well, we could trade him in the Myles Garrett. Why is Cleveland? Why would you want him?
Yep.
Sixth, seventh round, maybe is what I could see a team offering him. But at that point, why am I going to get rid of a quarterback that has been in my camp or in my practices in my facility for 2 years learning and rehabbing and we're grooming him for a 6th round pick that is let's be real, is not going to even see the field anyway. So the whole, we brought Teddy in and made him the backup quarterback. Again, it's experience. Hendon didn't get any reps. It's kind of like I go back to one of my coaching. Our starting quarterback senior tore his ACL week 2. Jeez. And you saw it with everybody. The team, just like the air got let out of the team. But we had a freshman quarterback that we had potential in, but he wasn't ready. And so we kept practicing, kept working with them. And then eventually he came in and played varsity, came close to 1,000 yards, threw 10 touchdowns his first every year playing football. But that's, you got to wait and develop him. And I think that's where Hendon's at. Everybody wants to look at his age like, oh my good, but he's also not putting the wear and tear in his body yet. So when he hits 30, he's also not a 30-year-old quarterback that's been taking all them hits and running and everything like that. He's had time to just kind of
marinate.
Stay
soaking
a little bit
it all
younger.
in.
Yeah.
I don't mind an older quarterback. I think, you're a little bit older, you're a little bit wiser, you're a little bit more mature. And Hendon came out of college a little bit older because he played full 5, maybe a 6th year in college. I think it was at least 5. And you're right, he hasn't taken all the hits. And when you haven't taken all the hits, it's like you're still young. You're a young pup at 30 anyway. But at 30 and you haven't taken any hits, you might as well say that he's probably 27 then.
Yep.
And you look at Aaron Rodgers. The dude's about to be 55 years old, and he's about to play again this year, and he's taking a ton of hits.
Yeah, and even if Hendon comes in and he loses some of that spring in his step,
it's gonna be.
I love Goff, but he's still gonna be more mobile than Goff.
Right, that's very true.
If I asked you guys, because Goff, you don't look at Goff right now as like, man, he's only got like 1 or 2 more years left in him, right? You don't feel that way. Hendon, yeah, he's older for a younger quarterback that hasn't played, but in 3 years, Hooker will be where Goff is now age-wise. And as you mentioned, Tim, without all those hits over years and years and years. So maybe you have him around when he's 30 and that's when he starts playing, or when he's 31. But it's and then you get 4 or 5 really good years out of him. He might have more value than a 6th-round pick, but you're right, Tim, as well. No team. Why would a team come and pay more? You haven't played. That they're going to use that as their negotiating leverage. Like, why are we giving you up or giving you the assets as though he's produced when he hasn't? So I agree with you, Tim, that he's got more value on the roster of the Lions than not.
Well, I will say this, man. Tonight was a good distraction. God, I'm so sick of looking at Twitter right now. There's just so much. I mean, between this Ukraine stuff and these tariffs and Canada, and it's just, man, this world is a vicious place, and you really got to thank, people, for where we are, what we're able to do. I feel blessed every day. I get to wake up and I get to talk about Lions and NFL, and it is a great distraction. It really is. It is a great distraction, but it's important. It's important to have these distractions. It's important to have people like Tim Brandon that are coaching up our youth, being a good positive role model, and also spreading that Lions love out there on the West Coast. So, Tim, I can't thank you enough for joining us tonight, man. It was fun. Maybe we can revisit this someday and get you in here if you want to do some draft talk, if you want to do anything, you just reach out, let me know, and we'll make it happen.
Absolutely.
So,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Lions are on at pick 28. Who's your pick? They didn't move. Who's it going to be?
Me?
Let me give you a scenario. You have somehow you have Shamar Stewart, you have Nick Scorton, you have Darius Alexander, Donovan Ezeraku, no way, Nick Emanawari, and Alec Iomanor. Those 6 players. So you got 2 edge, a linebacker, a safety, a DT, and a wide receiver.
Those are the 6 that I have to pick from?
Those are the 6 that you have to pick from. Unless there's someone else that you can think of.
If it's those 6 and Walter Nolan, I'll take Nolan.
You would still take Nolan.
I'd still take Nolan.
Over Shamar Stewart, really?
Yes.
Now, Shamar's a little raw, but you cannot discredit his 34-inch arms.
Yeah.
Right? Or his 130-inch
But like you said
broad.
earlier, Nolan's one of the most polished, just ready to play. And I think if you put him in right now and you have Zadarius, DJ, and a healthy Hutch, and then you can work in
Aleem
when he gets back, yeah.
Wingo and Aleem, good luck with that.
Yeah, we got Pascal. Can't forget about Pascal.
Yeah, and Pascal, and I think people don't give him enough credit with what he can do, because again, they look at sack numbers but he can set the edge. He did a really good job for us.
He did an excellent job. I was super impressed. He's been battling his way back. Cancer survivor himself, and that speaks volumes. And he went through a little rough patch for a few weeks last year. And look, I can't wait, man. The season's going to be here pretty soon, and I'm ready to rock and roll. Let's get through this draft and get to week 1. So, all right, Tim, appreciate you, man. We'll I'm sure we'll talk again soon, but give all those Lions fans out in California our love and tell them hi, and we'll see you guys all in the next one. Thank you guys for joining Rockhound Detroit Lions tonight. Coach Tim Brandon joined us tonight for member guests, talking a little football, a little bit of life, and a little bit of career. We'll see you guys next time.